It's now 10:30, so we're going to get our Wednesday webinar started. Thank you for joining the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And if you're not aware, we do presentations every Wednesday with these webinars that we do on a variety of topics. And today we're going to be talking about our Ditch the Pitch, and that's our guide for guarding against scams. And the version that we've most recently put out, we put out in August of last year. So we decided to kind of do this presentation again, just kind of as a summary of some of the things that are in Ditch the Pitch, and a good time to just kind of talk about the publication and let you know that it is available at consumer.sc.gov. And the first version of this book was released in July of 2015, so we have updated it, with a good bit of scams, because we know scams change a good bit throughout the years, but there are some things that always kind of stay the same with them. So we'll be talking about those types of things that you can kind of look out for, these red flags, and hopefully it'll be a little bit of a reminder of some of the things to watch out for, and hopefully it'll help you from becoming a victim. Here's our quick roadmap for the day. We'll give you a quick introduction of SCDCA, who we are, and how we can help you. We'll go over spoofing. Then with Ditch the Pitch, kind of the good thing about the publication is we'll give you the pitch. So that's the scam, and then the defense. So the little things to watch out for all these different types of scams that are out there. And we'll also cover those scam red flags, that are those things to watch out for every type of scam. We'll go over some quick things to do to keep your devices safe. And then we'll help you take some steps if a scammer actually does have your information, some things you can do to protect yourself. So how can SCDCA help you? The big thing is filing a complaint. That's the way most people know us about and come to us for. We take thousands of complaints every year. We look at those, and if they fall for another state agency or fall into those categories of something that they regulate and enforce by state law, we do have to give those complaints over to that agency. And our folks are pretty good at looking at that and getting those to the proper places for those types of complaints. And we also use a voluntary mediation process to kind of see if we can help you get a resolution. Tell people all the time that sometimes just writing out what has happened, things that you've done, and the things that you would like to have happen, a lot of times that's just a good practice to go through. And getting that to the right person at a company sometimes makes the difference of either getting you some kind of result or at least giving you that explanation of, why they made the decisions that they possibly made. You can also report a scam to our agency, and we encourage you to do that even if you didn't fall victim to a scam. And we use that information to just kind of educate people throughout the state and look at what's happening here and help other people from avoiding those types of scams that are out there. And we have an identity theft unit that can kind of walk you through the process. If you've become a victim of identity theft, they have checklists that they go through, and they can kind of guide you through that and help you take those steps to, prevent further damage. Potentially, sometimes they're able to help you get some credits or refunds, things like that too, onto your accounts, but they can kind of walk you through that and see what steps you might need to take. And you can also background a business on our website. You can go and look at industries that we regulate and enforce, and we have a lot of the information about those businesses on our website, so you can go through and look at max interest rates, things like that that are filed with our agency. And you can also look to see if there's information on other state agencies as well. We have some of those links that will get you some of those details about some of the other state agencies that regulate and enforce different types of industries in our state. And of course, we do free presentations like the one you're watching right now. We do them virtually, and we will also go out in the community across the state. We do those a good bit. I was just out in the Bluffton area yesterday, and we have folks in West Columbia today doing some presentations and things, and I think Rock Hill tomorrow. So we do those all across the state, and they are free to request. So if your church, community group, library, school, whatever the case may be, just let us know what you're interested in us discussing, and we're happy to come out and talk to your group. And we can also answer your questions. We have a live person who will answer our phone and take, that information from you and hopefully get you pointed to the right direction. Even if it's something that we're not kind of responsible for in the state, we'll kind of point you to the right way and get you to that place. And we also have people go through our emails, and we're happy to try to see what we can do to help you out. So if you have any questions that come up, feel free to either email or call us. Of course, all of our resources are at consumer.sc.gov, and that How Do I button is always kind of that best place to start. And you'll see all those resources we just discussed, so you can get to our complaint system, our identity theft and scams and presentations and all of that as well through there. And you can always click that little About Us button to learn a little bit more about our agency and how we operate and the types of things we're involved in. So we kind of want to get started into the ditch the pitch and some of the things that are covered in there. And of course, spoofing is that big way that scammers like to target us, right? That kind of that tool that they use. And it's usually just when they're kind of masking who they are, right? So they're pretending to be somebody else. And a lot of times that's somebody you know, somebody you trust. And I always tell people that's kind of that way they get their foot in the door, right? So if they act like somebody that you know and somebody that you deal business with quite often, they know you're more likely to answer the phone or reply to that email, to that text message, whatever the case may be. So they're often pretending to be somebody else. And of course, that always started with phone calls when we would get the message that looked like it was somebody else calling on the caller ID. So that big, message there, we always tell people don't trust your caller ID anymore, right? But, these types of things, especially the term spoofing, kind of started with phone calls. And now we kind of use that same term for everything. So again, it's email, social media, text messages in particular. I know I get those quite a bit that way nowadays. So that spoofing is just kind of that thing that they're doing to pretend to be somebody else. And I've got a couple of quick little examples, and these are some of the messages that I've received in the last week or so. And that first one is one that, I laughed. I almost clicked this one, but it's that attempt to, get you to get worried. Your account's on hold. In this case, they were saying my Disney Plus and Spotify, or not Spotify, Hulu, all that stuff was, some kind of problem with the account, and it's now on hold, and I have to click that button and update all my information. So they want me to put in, probably all those details about account, credit card numbers, those types of things, and even personal information, name, address, phone numbers, and all that. I did not click that button, but I almost did, because I was sitting there for a second and I was like, what could possibly be going on with my Hulu and Disney Plus? And, as I sat there, I was like, I just paid that today. That bill just went through today on my card. How is there a problem with it? And as I thought about that, I took a closer look at that message and realized, hey, that came from a Gmail address. That was not from the folks that said it was. So, they're always trying to catch us at a bad time. I know I'd just gotten off work and was trying to do 2 or 3 other things while I was looking at that, and it almost got me, but that's kind of that trick that they use with that. Here's another one. Scammers love to pretend to be Amazon, and it's one of the most kind of spoofed companies in the world. They're often pretending to be Amazon, and they do that because they know, there's a pretty high chance that anybody they send this text message to could be an Amazon customer, right? So they sent me this one not too long ago, claiming to be Amazon's recall office, and you'll see a couple of odd things. The first thing that I had to laugh about was I noticed there were like 20 or 30 people on that message. So of course, company that you're doing business with, they're not going to send a message about your recall to 30 other people. So that's kind of one of those warning signs. And of course, the website that they wanted me to go to was nothing like what Amazon normally is. And, normally whenever I get something from Amazon, it does go to my email that's kind of associated with that account. So that was kind of one of those warning things. I don't think I've ever gotten a text message actually from Amazon. So, just kind of think about those things, ways that they normally communicate to you. And I always tell people, if you're actually a customer of these, these two are good examples of that. Could have gone into my Disney account or to my Amazon accounts and looked at, was there actually a problem? If there actually was a problem, I'd probably see something in those apps addressing that issue. And the last one I want to show you real quick is that message that I'm sure everybody on here has received at some point in time, is those DMV messages where they're saying you ran the express lane and you have a toll road. They're also pretending to be the DMV in some of these cases where they'll say, you have a traffic violation, you have to pay the DMV. Just kind of know all of these different types of things are a scam. And in this case, I'd encourage you, you think one of these is real, try to go to that, toll roads website. I think the name of it's completely wrong on this. So that's kind of that first warning sign with that. As far as the ones that warn about the DMV, you can go to their website and they have a big alert on the top of their page where it says, we are not responsible for toll roads or traffic tickets. So, those things, just kind of think about the way those normal payments work for those types of things, especially toll roads. You're going to get something in the mail. If you have a speeding ticket or some kind of violation like that, you've probably interacted with a police officer at some point and you would know which department pulled you over and those types of things. So just kind of think those types of things through as you get those kind of messages. And of course, there's always those warning signs. Generic greetings are often on there. So if the DMV or somebody was actually trying to get a hold of me, hopefully they would know my name. A lot of times, you may see "Dear Customer," and that's always kind of one of those warning signs. Usually companies have some kind of way to put your name in those messages that they're sending you. And always watch out for those act now or else type messages. Again, a lot of times it's those things like I just showed, trying to get you to verify or update personal information that you may have associated with an account. Pay that fee now for the toll road, or it's going to, go up from $4 to $46, those types of things. So kind of watch out for any of those act now or else messages, especially if they're telling you only have like 24 hours to react. That's kind of crazy. Most companies are going to give you a lot more time to make a decision before you have to do something. And just kind of keep in mind too that scammers a lot of times have a little bit of information about you, and they're trying to use those details to make you believe whatever it is that they're saying. Sometimes, there may be a security breach involving a company and they may have access to who those customers are. So they know that you're a customer of, whatever that company is that they're pretending to be. So just kind of keep in mind, sometimes they may have a few details about you, but always be skeptical of any of those messages that you're getting out of the blue. Now I want to get into a little bit about ditch the pitch and kind of that scam pitch that they'll give you, and then some of the little defense tools that you can use to hopefully avoid giving money or personal information over to these scammers and identity thieves. And the one that I like to start with is online shopping, and I start with it because we're all doing that online shopping. We're all out there looking for a deal, but purchase scams are that #1 thing typically that's reported to SCDCA. At least last year was our #1 scam. So a lot of folks, were out there looking for good deals, and we're maybe ended up on websites that we're not too familiar with. And of course, we know scammers can pretend to be legitimate online sellers, and they'll also set up kind of fake websites that look really good and they look like something that you would normally go to and interact with. So just kind of keep that in mind. And also know that scammers will spend money too. They're going to run advertisements on social media. They may pay some of the search engines to have their fake website pop up as one of the top search results for a number of different topics. So just kind of keep in mind, if you're using those online search engines, that the things that pop up as those kind of sponsored results, somebody has paid for those. So you kind of want to be skeptical of what those websites are sometimes. So just kind of know that. And the big thing is they're always going to try to give you some kind of price that's too good to be true. So they kind of lure you in with that website that looks legitimate, and then they're going to give you some kind of price that's just, you can't turn away this offer. So keep those in mind, that if those prices are too good to be true, they probably are. And kind of our defense for a lot of these types of scams, again, you want to stick to those trusted, well-established websites. We've all kind of been online shopping for many years at this point. So stick to those sites that you've used quite a bit. There are times where I've gone to some websites that were things that I weren't too familiar with. And kind of what I did was talk to a lot of my friends about it before. So kind of realized, oh, this website is something that's out there, it's maybe tied to some hobbies or different kind of interests that we have in common. And I knew there was a pretty good chance, if it was a true real website, that these guys were also kind of looking at it and probably have used it from time to time. And sure enough, getting talking to people, that's the case. So just kind of make sure you're using those websites that are well established. And if you're not too familiar with them, ask around to your friends and family members, people that have those common interests, and see what they think about that site as well. Another good tip: use your online when you're using online shopping, use that credit card to make those purchases. The reason we say that is it's going to give you a lot more financial protections. Federal law kind of mandates that the credit cards give you a little bit more options as far as challenging things that have happened. If that purchase, something goes wrong, you get that money at least put back onto your account while that challenge is going through. So that's going to be good. And some of those secure payment services may be a good option as well. What I mean by that's Apple Pay, Google Pay, those types of things. They have a lot of encryption things going on too with those payment methods, but they're also it's preventing you from having to enter all that credit card information in over and over and over. So, if something's going on, somebody is able to kind of monitor that information that you're putting in through those websites. You're not entering it over and over and over, and that information is encrypted. So those are pretty good options for you as well to consider. And I'd also say, keep those things tied to your credit cards as well. So if there is something that's going on, it's not kind of tied directly into that checking account or that bank account that you have, and it'll give you a little bit more protections for that. We also want to remind people, just review those financial statements all the time. You want to catch anything that may show up on your credit card or your checking accounts. You want to catch that stuff as quickly as possible, because there are kind of rules that mandate, how soon you can be held responsible if you don't challenge those things within a certain amount of time. So you want to catch all those things as soon as you can, notify your bank or that credit card provider about what's going on with those purchases if it's something that you didn't make. And while you're shopping online, kind of look for that S that comes up in the HTTP, and it should be right after that. So it will say HTTPS and then the name of the website or that address for the website. That's kind of that quick look at what that is. And basically, they're just securing that information. So they're encrypting it, and they've paid to have that process kind of gone through. And you should see the little lock there. I know kind of on Apple phones, they've changed the way that looks a little bit. But if you click into that address, it will show you the HTTPS on that. And that just means that that website's secure and it's being encrypted. And hopefully your information will be a little bit better protected. And especially if you're using financial accounts, emails, things like that, you want to make sure it's got that HTTPS on there. Dating and romance scams are one of those things that we see quite a bit. And sometimes I'll also kind of call those confidence scams as well. So it may be, you're not necessarily looking for love from that person online or whatever the case may be, but you're kind of got that close relationship with them, maybe friendship over a common interest or common hobbies, things like that. And of course, we know that scammers like to pretend to be somebody else, and they'll make fake online identities, and they're doing that again to gain somebody's love and trust. And sometimes they're making those profiles look like something that specifically you are interested in. They maybe have gone through and looked at things that you've posted on social media or online, and they're kind of making those profiles and things to be kind of a little bit more targeted towards you. So just kind of keep in mind that scammers use these types of things to gain love and trust. And sometimes they may even steal names, photos of other people. We see this a lot of times, particularly with soldiers and people who maybe have to work abroad for some type of reason. I was just hearing something yesterday from some folks who, there was a scammer situation and the person was claiming to work for the State Department overseas. So just kind of keep in mind that these things are out there. And of course, those kind of methods, if they're, tied in with being a soldier, they may not be able to FaceTime or something like that. That might be kind of that reason or their excuse for not being able to kind of interact with you a little bit more on demand or something like that. And of course, if they're overseas, there's that kind of reason of why they wouldn't be able to come see you sometimes. So, that's kind of that why of like why they pretend to be those people. And of course, they know we all trust soldiers or respect them and those types of things too. So it's, again, tied into getting that trust and getting you to be able to kind of interact with them. And as I mentioned a minute ago, they may have all those common interests for you. And they're just kind of using those things as a reason to be able to interact with you, get talking to you, and get the information flowing or getting your trust and getting you to open up. And eventually they will ask you for some kind of money or some kind of information. We always encourage people to talk about these things. So if there's a new online love interest, particularly, talk to people people that you trust about it, let them know what's going on, see what they think about the situation. And a lot of times doing that kind of help open up the eyes of something that may be wrong. And just keep in mind, scammers always have a wealth of excuses. So they may have some kind of sob story about something bad that's happened to them and why they need to get cash from you, or why, again, why they may not be able to visit, those types of things. So just always kind of keep that in mind. Kind of the number one rule that I always tell people with these types of things is, if you haven't met that person, you haven't seen them face to face, don't send them money. Don't give them that personal information. There's no reason to give that money to somebody that you haven't met in real life and that you haven't been able to build that relationship with. So if you haven't met them in real life, face to face, there's no reason to give them your hard-earned money. I want to show you a little bit about tech support scams. These are out there still. And again, a lot of times scammers will pretend to be computer tech companies. So they're sending you those messages, or maybe it's a pop-up that shows up on your device and pretends to be one of those tech companies that we all use probably, or at least heard of. A lot of times they pretend to be the actual security software companies too. So if you're getting those messages, always kind of be cautious of it. You never want to kind of give that access to your device to somebody else. So a lot of times these scammers, they're going to get a hold of you one way or another, usually a text message or some kind of pop-up that shows up on your device, and they say there's some kind of problem. Either you didn't pay, or that maybe some kind of malware or malicious information has been found on your device. So that's kind of that hook that they use. Your account, your device needs to be fixed, and they can help. And of course, they'll ask for remote access to your device, or want you to pay to get that protection from them. And they may even ask you for a verification code. And a lot of times that's kind of that multi-factor authentication code that you probably got set up on some of these types of accounts. And they may have some information. Maybe they've even figured out your password. And they're like, oh, we just need to get that verification code to get in and fix this device for you. So watch out anytime anybody's asking for those verification codes. You definitely don't want to give those over, because you could be giving control of your device to somebody. And we hear from time to time of these hackers and these scammers who are able to convince people to give access to their devices. And while that, they've got that access to that device, they may even ask you to log into some kind of financial account or something like that. And while that account's open, they're able to go in and kind of move money around or take money out and do things with it. So just keep all that information in mind. And you never want to give remote access to somebody that's just kind of contacted you out of the blue. If you actually have a tech support system, or a security company that you're paying for, you probably have their app or some kind of way that you normally interact with that company. So use those types of things. Don't give people permission, who've contacted you out of the blue to get into your device. And again, you never want to call those numbers that may be listed on those security warnings, and you don't want to click any of those links that may be on there. And the reason we say that is you just don't know where those go to. So those security messages may have a phone number that actually goes to a scammer, or that link that you're clicking on may download some kind of malicious software or something like that. So just kind of keep those things in mind. If you ever need to contact those tech support companies, again, you probably have that app or that kind of method that you normally use, maybe a receipt on some kind of purchase with them. I know a lot of times I have those in my email, so go through those, find those phone numbers and those websites that are those tried, true, trusted ways to get in touch with those companies. And if you're like me and you have an app that does all that, normally there's some kind of contact method in those apps. So those are always great places to start to look for that type of information. I want to look a little bit at cryptocurrency ATMs real quick. And these are kind of, I want to say, newer scams that are going on, but some of our sheriff's departments in the state, they tell us that they're seeing millions of dollars lost every year with some of the cryptocurrency scams that are out there involving the ATMs. So just want to kind of encourage everybody to be really cautious that anybody is getting a hold of you and telling you to go to a cryptocurrency ATM and put in money, and then give them access to those codes and those types of things that would be on those accounts. So a lot of times scammers are going to pretend to be a business. They may even pretend to be a government employee. Sometimes there's tech support stuff. We see these a lot of times where they pretend to be sheriff's departments, or working in a judge's office, and they'll say you missed jury duty, or we have this warrant for you. You got to pay this fine, something like that. Sometimes they'll even pretend to be banks, and they'll say, your account's in danger. The only way to protect it is to take your money from the bank put it in this cryptocurrency ATM. So these messages usually have some kind of call or message about suspicious activity that's happened. A lot of times with the banks, they'll say, your account's been compromised by a hacker or something. You have to protect it from that hacker by taking the money out. So just kind of know that those are kind of unusual messages. I always tell people your bank's not going to tell you to take your money out of their bank. So that's kind of one of those warning signs that I don't have listed on here, but just kind of keep in mind too, your bank's not going to tell you to move money to another bank. And our sheriff's department friends, they always tell us, if you have a warrant for your arrest, you're not getting a phone call. You're getting a knock on the door from a deputy. So just kind of know that those are the way things normally work. Just kind of keep that in mind. Don't fall into kind of those scare tactics that these scammers use for these types of things. So if you're getting these kind of expected messages or phone calls, you don't want to interact with any of those phone numbers. And again, you don't want to click those links. And that's kind of one of those messages we say all the time. Do not click the links or call any phone numbers in those unexpected messages. And of course, you always want to slow down. Maybe talk to somebody you trust. If they're pretending to be your bank, call your bank or go stop by the local branch and see what's going on. And pretty quickly, you'll get things sorted out about whether or not it's a scam. And of course, we always tell people don't withdraw cash in response to an unexpected call or message. And you definitely don't want to use a cryptocurrency ATM to, move money or fix any of these types of problems. It's just not the way that these things normally work. So anytime that that's happening and you're getting these kind of phone calls or anything like that, hang up on them. Do not keep interacting with them and ignore what they call you back, because I'm pretty sure most of the time they call you back and they try to stay on the phone with you for hours to convince you. We hear that from time to time that somebody's getting a phone call from these scammers with these, especially the cryptocurrency ATMs, and they'll stay on the phone with the person the entire time. So they'll tell them which ATM to drive to, and they'll stay on the phone with them while they drive there. And as they're at the ATM and putting information in those ATMs, so just kind of keep that information in mind and know that anytime anybody's telling you to use a cryptocurrency ATM to fix a problem, that's a scam. Now we have our kind of defense and our warning signs at the grandparent and family emergency scams. And a lot of times, you may be getting those phone calls that pretend to be a grandchild or somebody in the family, and they'll have some kind of reason for why they sound different. This one's getting a little bit harder with artificial intelligence to kind of pick this out, because these scammers can use just a few seconds of audio that they've probably found on social media or somewhere online, and they can make really convincing recordings or things that sound just like this family member. So just kind of keep in mind that this technology is developing, and it's getting a little bit harder to kind of figure out if it sounds different than that person they're pretending to be or not. A lot of times they're saying they're in trouble, they need bail money, they have some kind of reason that you need to give them, that money. May even be a hospital stay or something like that. And sometimes they may even have several people involved in these types of scams. So you may get one call from somebody pretending to be a lawyer. You may get another call from somebody pretending to be a judge in the case, or, an investigator or something like that. So just kind of know that there may be multiple kind of waves of this that will come to you. And, it's wild, some of the stuff that's out there. And I know I have multiple family members who get this types of things all the time. And, in some cases, they pretend to be me and have a little bit of information about me when they call these family members. So just kind of know that, everything that these scammers are saying, they may have a few details, but you really got to just kind of be on guard. And first step is you want to verify that it's really that person. You may want to try to give that person a phone number or a phone call, right? So if they're pretending to be your grandson, maybe you hang up and then call the grandson, see what they're going to say. A lot of times the scammers will have a reason why you shouldn't hang up and, call somebody else or call another number. But just kind of keep that in mind and know that, you can hang up and try to call those numbers that are tried and true. And you can always call another family member, maybe check out their story. Good chance if they're claiming to be out of the country or something like that in those scam phone calls, good chance somebody else in the family knows that they're actually in another country or not, right? So maybe call some other folks and kind of check out those stories. One of the good things that we always tell people is just kind of maybe come up with those passwords, phrases, things that only people in your family know. Those are always good things you can do to protect yourselves and those other family members too. So you have those questions to ask them that only people in the family know. That's a great tool to use that can really protect people in these types of situations. If they're telling you to send money quickly and secretly, that is a huge red flag. One of the police officers that we were with yesterday kind of told people, kind of the big thing is if it's somebody who's claiming to be in jail, leave them in jail. That's fine. If they're really in jail, they should be some kind of paper trail. So somebody at a court or somebody knows what's going on. You can always go through those methods, call the courthouse, see what's going on, look up those online arrest records, those types of things. So, anytime that there's something like that going on, there's no reason to be acting quickly and secretly. The caller will likely say they're embarrassed and they don't want other people in the family to know they were arrested or injured or whatever the case may be. So just kind of keep that in mind and resist that pressure to act immediately and secretly. And one of the things you can do to kind of avoid getting these types of messages, kind of limit what you share on social media and what you're posting online as well. A lot of times, at least with me, it seems like some of the scammers get information about me online and use that, they can maybe go through social media, and if other family members have it, where they can see who their common family members are, they can go through that and say, oh, that's your, son or your brother or your cousin or whatever the case may be. And they kind of use those details to kind of build their scam, right? So just kind of check that, limit what you share, especially what you're sharing publicly. So set all those profiles to private, and that can be a great tool to kind of better protect yourself and your information and protects those other family members, right? Surveying prize giveaway scams, those are quite frequently on social media and some of the different websites that we all go to. So just kind of watch out for any of those calls, text messages, emails, against social media posts, things like that are asking you to fill out a poll, questionnaire. Sometimes those are just, attempts to get a lot of different information bits about you. So just kind of keep that in mind. They may not quite frankly ask about payments or things like that, but a lot of times just providing all those details about yourself may open it up, some attempts for scams a little bit later on down the road. So just kind of keep that in mind. Again, they're always going to pretend to be these well-known businesses. So it's those companies that we all interact with. And they do that because it's just a pretty big net. So if they're throwing out names of companies that we all see commercials for all the time, or maybe we shop at, things like that, they know we're more likely to interact with that kind of scam attempt, right? And you always want to be aware of any of these things that say you have to pay to get a prize, right? So you shouldn't have to provide a lot of personal information or some of these fees if they're trying to say it's taxes, shipping, all kinds of different things that they'll come up with. So just kind of keep in mind that all these attempts to get money and information are likely scams. I want to show you a couple of quick examples, and these are ones I've probably shown before, but I get things like this from time to time that kind of pop up in my emails and social media posts and things like that, where you get these messages, congratulations, you're going to get a $90 promo reward from McDonald's, and all you got to do is click in there and then participate in the loyalty program and give them the information, and you'll get $90 in promo rewards. This one popped up in my email, and I was like, you know what? McDonald's has never asked me for my email. They have no way of knowing my email address. So why would they be sending me that message? So that's kind of that warning sign to me with that one. And of course, that was a scam attempt. And this is the type of stuff we see all the time too, where they're trying to give you a pretty good prize. In this case, it was a Yeti backpack cooler, which is pretty expensive. But it popped up in messages, just got to answer and win. So they're trying to get a little bit of information, probably going to ask for some payments and stuff. And you only have, short amount of time to be able to click in there and get that. So that's kind of one of those warning signs too. But again, big thing for me was these are companies that I've never had, email association with. So I've never actually, shopped on their websites or, any of that type of stuff. There's no reason these companies would have my email address, or at least the email address that it came to. So those are always kind of big warning signs. And if you look at where the email came from, most of the time it's not going to have anything to do associated with those companies. And it's pretty obvious when you start looking at them that they're coming from places not associated with those companies. And of course, again, you heard me say it a few minutes ago, don't click on those links or respond to those unexpected messages if you're getting those types of things. But if you do think those, offers could be legitimate, you can always contact the company, see if they actually did send those messages. A lot of times they'll have details about any kind of prize promo thing like that that's going on, maybe on their website or their social media accounts. Usually these big companies like that have a phone number somewhere so you can call them, find out if these things are real before you, start clicking in on any of those messages and those links that are coming into you. And if you're looking up those addresses, please look them up yourself. Don't use those links that are in that email address. It's a good thing to point out with that as well. And of course, you never want to send money to claim a prize. If something's supposed to be a prize and free reward for you, it should be free, right? So don't send money to claim those types of prizes. Now I want to give you kind of those red flags to kind of spot any type of scam that's out there. And if you've seen our presentations before, we always mention these type of topics or these little red flags because we know that these scams change all the time. They may be changing, what the topic is that they're kind of going after, or these methods that they communicate with us, or these various things. And these scams change all the time, but we know that these red flags are kind of typical for every type of scam that's out there. And again, that big thing, they always pretend to be somebody somebody you recognize, somebody that you trust. And that's pretty obvious why they do that. They know if you think you recognize that name of that company, or you think it's a friend and they've spoofed that phone number, or maybe hacked into their social media accounts and those messages, they know you're more likely to interact with them, and you're probably more likely to trust whatever it is that they're saying. So just kind of watch out. And that first thing, again, they're spoofing, pretending to be somebody that they're not, and they want you to think that they're trustworthy. Then they're going to say there's a problem or a prize. So it may be something like, problem with that Hulu and Disney Plus account. You've got to click in there and fix that problem right away, or you're not going to have access to that account. Or you may get that message about a prize, that $90 for, McDonald's rewards, those types of things. And they do that to get us kind of excited, get us worked up. We think something either really good or really bad is about to happen. And when we've got our emotions going like that, we may not be thinking it through and may not be making the best decisions. And then that's when they pressure us to act immediately. And that's kind of that thing where they want you to act before you have time to think, and they definitely want you to act before you have time to talk to somebody else and kind of have that chance to see that it's a scam, right? So they want you to act before you can get, your thought processes going. And the quicker they can get you to act, kind of the more likely you are to make a bad decision. So anytime somebody's telling you you have to act right away, that's kind of one of those quick warning signs to know that you might want to take a step back and think about it, a little bit further before you take any kind of action. And always watch how scammers tell you to pay. We mentioned cryptocurrency ATMs a little bit ago. Scammers love those cryptocurrency payments. And that's just because, it can be difficult to get it back. Once you kind of send all those payment information, it can be the other side of the world in just a matter of minutes. So there's very, little chance of you getting that money back. And a lot of times the scammers maybe ask for either gift cards, or sometimes it's prepaid like debit cards, those types of things. And it's just those things that are just as good as cash. They can take that money right away, move it somewhere else, and there's very little chance that you can get those funds back. So that's kind of why they like those types of payments. And I always tell people, just kind of think about the way things are normally paid. I like to use utilities as an example. I know my power company has my information. I pay the same way every month. If they were to call and ask for payment in a different way, that would be kind of that red flag. So if they're telling me all of a sudden I have to go and pay with cryptocurrency ATM payment for some reason one month, that's pretty big warning sign. I don't pay that way. Normally every month, I pay through a certain payment method, and that's the same way every month. And I know the day of the month that it happens too. So just kind of watch out for those types of things as well, and kind of think those through and say, is this the way it normally works? And if not, it's probably a scam. I want to give you a couple of quick tips, things you can do to keep your devices safe. They're just basic cybersecurity things that anybody can do, and we like that, where it's not complicated. And these are tips that come from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is CISA. They're part of Homeland Security, and also the National Cybersecurity Alliance as well, which operates Stay Safe Online. They've developed these things as quick, easy ways that we can all protect our information. So these are all kind of some of the things that we focus on whenever we talk about cybersecurity, and kind of that first thing, and we've talked a little bit about this throughout the presentation, is just kind of think before you click. So recognize those signs of a scam. And if you have that little option like on your email buttons or on your phones, whenever you're getting text messages, if you have that kind of report scam or report phishing message, take advantage of those, because those will let your email providers and your phone providers know that something's off with that message, and they can take steps to prevent that person or that group from sending out those mass messages to thousands of other people. So just kind of keep that in mind and report those things as much as you can. And like I said, if something looks a little bit off, you don't want to click it, right? So those things could give you an opportunity to download malicious software, those types of things, or it may be attempts to get information, money from you. So just kind of watch out for any of those links and don't click on them. The easiest thing to do on this list is update your software, right? Most of our phones probably have that automatic update that you can set. Once you've done that, you don't have to worry about it anymore. So you want to set those things up for all your apps. So all those applications on your phone, all those different types of software, definitely your operating systems, those types of things. If you're like me, I kind of have to watch that one. I have automatic updates set up, but I get the message quite regularly that my phone is full and I have to delete, that's photos and videos, right? Those are the things that tie up my phone. So we've got to go in that and delete all that stuff so my software can be updated, but just kind of keep that in mind. I usually get a notification whenever that app update isn't able to happen, but you want to keep those things updated. And that's just fixing all those security flaws that these companies discover. And you want to fix those things before hackers have time to take advantage of those flaws and target your devices. You want to use strong passwords everywhere that you're required to use passwords. Next week on our presentation, we're going to talk about passwords and passkeys. So we'll kind of get into a good bit of that as that gets kind of moving. But if you're using passwords, you want to make them strong, you want to make them unique, and you want to make them all different from each other. Of course, that kind of goes along with unique. But the best thing you can do is just make them all as long as possible. That length is going to be the biggest key to security. But you also want to put those things like uppercase, lowercase letters in there, maybe some numbers and some symbols. So you want to make them complex, right? And if you can, password manager is also a great tool that would kind of help you organize all that and keep all those unique passwords kind of together and help you figure out ways to save those and remember them, because we all struggle with that. So those password managers would be a great tool to take advantage of. Use two-factor or multi-factor authentication. Most like financial accounts, emails, hopefully social media, those types of things generally are going to require you to use that. Set up something that you are comfortable with. So you can set up a face scan. You can maybe get that text message that comes in and you just enter in that quick number, that they send you. And I know it takes a few seconds to take advantage of that, but it really is going to help you out. And the FBI tells us that it's the best thing you can do to kind of double your protection. So even if somebody has that password, they're not able to get into that account. And kind of the different types of multi-factor authentication that are out there, kind of those knowledge factors. So that may be an additional PIN or something like that that you have to enter. Maybe your actual smartphone, that possession factor, right? So you may have an app that you use that gives you that message, is this you trying to log in, that type of stuff. I know we use some of that here at work. And we also have apps that will then give you a different code to enter once those come in. And of course, that face scan is going to be a great thing to use as well if you're comfortable with that. And that just kind of helps protect your phone as well. So instead of having to wait for that code to get messaged to you, I know sometimes those can take a while. My phone seems to be very slow of actually providing those to me. But you can use the face scan, hold it up, and within just a couple of seconds, you're already in that account. Again, it's kind of giving you that extra layer of security to prevent people getting into your accounts if they have your information. And if a scammer has your information, there are some things you can do to protect yourself. One of the best things you can do is go through your credit reports regularly. They are available free every week through annualcreditreport.com. And that was kind of a change recently with the major credit bureaus. But annualcreditreport.com is the site that we recommend using, because there are federal rules that kind of dictate how they can use your information and things that they can't share, things like that. So Annualcreditreport.com will give you access to TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. So those are the three major credit bureaus. And you want to go through those credit reports every so often, at least once a year, maybe a few more times if you can. You can go through all three at once, or you can kind of spread them out however you want to do it. But you can go through those, make sure everything is accurate, make sure everything actually belongs to you. It'll show you phone numbers, addresses, the actual accounts that you have. So like for me, it's got my car payments, what that loan was originally for, how much I'm paying, and kind of how much is left on that account too. So go through all of that, make sure it's correct and actually belongs to you. So if you're seeing things that, are accounts that somebody else may have opened, you want to challenge those as quickly as possible with those credit reporting agencies and let them know what's going on. You may also need to contact those companies that that loan has been created for. So if, that's going through one specific company, you would also need to contact them as well. And if you're finding signs of identity theft, fraud alert is a good idea. And it's basically just going to put additional protections in place, and it's going to tell businesses that something's happened and they need to take additional steps to actually verify that it's you. So if you notify Experian, TransUnion, or Equifax, ask for that fraud alert, they will put it in place for the other two as well for you. It's going to last a year. You can get it extended beyond that if those signs of identity theft are there. So that's good tool you can do. And again, it's just going to tell businesses they've got to do an additional step to, double check that it actually is who person that claims it is trying to open up those accounts. And a security freeze is one of the greatest tools that I recommend that everybody do. It is definitely worth the time to do it. It's free to place or to lift. But basically, you're contacting Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. You have to go through all three of the major credit bureaus. But putting that freeze in place is going to kind of prevent access to your information. It's going to prevent other people from opening up accounts. So I know in my case, a little while back, probably about a year back or so now, somebody tried to open up a credit card in my name, somehow got my information, probably through a data breach. I know I've had several notices from different companies, my mortgage company, my phone company, and some others that my information was involved in one of these data breaches that you hear about on TV, these national data breaches. So my information was out there. Somebody tried to use my information to open up a credit card. Fortunately, had that freeze in place. They weren't able to do that. I got that notice from one of the credit bureaus that, this credit card had been applied for. And if it was me, I needed to lift that freeze, right? So I would have had to lift that freeze, go in and reapply for that application if that was me, but it was not. So it prevented that person from getting that access to that information and being able to open that account, and saved me a big headache to deal with, right? So it's a great tool to do. Again, it's free. Just contact Experian, TransUnion, Equifax, put that freeze in place, and whenever you need to open up a new type of account, if it's a car loan or whatever the case may be, you might need to go in and lift that. Generally, if you're doing it online, within an hour, they'll have that freeze lifted for you, and you can go in and do those loan applications and those types of things. But again, great tool to protect your information. We always encourage you to keep up with your accounts, monitor those things. So maybe set up those alerts that your banking accounts and your credit cards offer. Some will give you those alerts if you've made a purchase. I know a lot of my coworkers have that set up. So anytime somebody's, running that credit card, they get an alert on their phone right away that, purchase has been made. Maybe it's an alert where if somebody's trying to sign in, you get that, is this you? Or sometimes they'll send you alerts about credit report changes, things like that. Just kind of look through what alerts that your financial institutions offer, see what kind of appeals to you, what works for your lifestyle, and set those up. Those are great things you can do to at least be able to spot those things right away. So if you're getting those alerts about purchases onto your phone and it wasn't you, you're able to notify that bank right away and let them know that somebody's got that card number and they're trying to make purchases. This is a great tool that we don't always mention in all of our presentations, but it will really help you out if you're getting a lot of things in the mail. Those offers for credit cards, insurance, those types of things. Basically, these companies are running your information. They're trying to pre-screen you, pre-qualify you for all these different types of offers. You can go to this website, optoutprescreen.com, or you can call that phone number, and it's going to take your number and your name, those types of things, off those lists. So basically these companies, they go to the credit bureaus, they're trying to get information about your credit report, see if you qualify for the kind of ideal customers that they're looking for. But if you sign up for this, you're basically taking your name out of that kind of customer or potential customer list. So you're no longer on those databases that are kind of shared with those other companies. So optoutprescreen.com is a great tool you can take advantage of, and that will help you get fewer of those offers in the mail. We also encourage you to set up a My Social Security account, even if you're not close to that age of needing benefits or anything like that. MySSA.gov is that official government website to manage all those benefits. Again, you want to be able to sign this up, create that account before somebody else does. So if somebody is able to get access to your Social Security number and has some of those information details about you, they might be able to go onto that site, create an account. They're basically kind of taking advantage of your benefits. So you want to be able to do that before they do. That website is ssa.gov/myaccount. And if you think you're a victim of identity theft, please call our office or fill out our identity theft report. That's on our website, consumer.sc.gov. And again, we've got an identity theft unit who can kind of walk you through that process, figure out what things you might need to do to better protect your information. They can kind of guide you through that and let you know things you might need to do to kind of minimize the damage, right? So one of the things they'll send is this identity theft toolkit. And again, it's going to kind of walk you through some of the stuff with the credit reports and those things that you might need to do, but it's also going to give you information on, making that identity theft report, getting those credit reports, looking at all that stuff, all those things you might need to do to repair the damage and correct errors that may be showing up on those credit reports. And I do want to show you, if you've downloaded the slides, we've got a little button here. We'll take you directly to our Ditch the Pitch page on our website. So if you need to take a look at that and you weren't able to download the actual Ditch the Pitch, that is available there through that link in there. And you can also order free brochures on our website, consumer.sc.gov. This is going to take you to our brochure order form. There's a little slide here. So if you click on that, it will take you to that page and you can order up to 50. So if you have a community group, church group, whatever the case may be, and you need some of these publications to go out to people in your community, we encourage you to do that. And you can order up to 50 by going to our website. And anytime I mention Ditch the Pitch, I always have to mention our Ditch the Pitch Bingo, which is kind of a game we've created, set up to kind of give you tips, kind of like the ones we've just done throughout the presentation, but there's some of our tips with scam prevention, those types of things. And the way we play is we'll call out a number. So in this case, you'll see like N41, and then we'll give you that tip of something like, don't let fear and embarrassment keep you from reporting theft or fraud. And then the other one, 063. So if we dial, spin the wheel, pull 063, we would give that tip, and talk about that bit of information for a bit. So we'd give you that tip of looking for the HTTPS, so making sure that information is encrypted whenever you're using those financial services on the website or putting information into an online shop, those types of things. So that game kind of helps us kind of get that conversation going and talking to folks about different scams and identity theft situations that are out there. And if you don't follow us on social media, I'd encourage you to. We're on Face, X, Instagram, and of course, YouTube. And we put a lot of our webinars and some of our various video information on YouTube. So if there's topics that you're interested in, there's a good chance we have it on our YouTube. Or if you've missed a webinar or just want to see a certain portion of it again, maybe go on our YouTube channel and we've got those for you there. Somebody asked, does law enforcement go after scammers? Yes, they do. We were with Beaufort County Sheriff's Department yesterday, so that's kind of why I'm going to mention them. Their big struggle with it is, a lot of times they are able to kind of look at things and figure out, okay, we've got this scam that's going on. Unfortunately, a lot of times with the way the internet, in particular in the text message scams that happen, a lot of times they got to get federal investigators involved with that. But, go to your local law enforcement, particularly if you've fallen victim to this type of scam, get that law enforcement or that police report filed with them. And a lot of times they'll ask you maybe to go to ic3.gov. That's FBI related website. Again, it's ic3.gov, and it's Internet Crime Complaints Center, if I remember right. There's 3 C's there. But you go to those websites and your local law enforcement, and they'll kind of help navigate you through that type as well. But a lot of times, going after these scammers does take that kind of federal level investigator as well. And that's just because a lot of times these scammers are actually somewhere else. Somebody asked, how is a crypto ATM different from a standard ATM? They're just basically dealing with those cryptocurrencies. So there's, probably hundreds of different types of cryptocurrency now, and that's basically digital money, or, a lot of times it's a digital investment. So, you're buying a little bit of their coin, or, whatever the terms that they're using, depending on the cryptocurrency, you're paying for that. And the value may change a little bit depending on how quick of a turnaround, but they know that that's all digital information. So they'll send you to those ATMs. Some people will use them for an investment opportunity, put money in there, and they'll kind of hold on to it for a good while to use those coins. But a lot of times it's just kind of a way to digitally transfer those funds. So they're using those cryptocurrency ATMs. It's kind of a wire transfer type way in some ways. So they're sending you to that cryptocurrency ATM. They'll tell you to put money in an account, and then they'll ask for that information about that account. So maybe that barcode or those details to get into that a particular type of account, and you'll send them basically the information about the money you just put in there. And by the time you do that, that's kind of giving them access to go in and remove those funds or transfer it somewhere else. So they are different than kind of that standard ATM in that way. And again, we had another question kind of about law enforcement, what they do to go after phishing. We kind of talked about that a second ago, but I do want to say using those report junk and those report scam, those types of features on your phone in particular. And I say that because it's very easy to do. And that can help those, especially phone carriers, kind of notice those problem numbers, right? So if they're getting a large bump of people reporting particular numbers, they can maybe take those steps to prevent that. Because I know Federal Communications Commission has kind of gone after some of the phone companies and some of the phone providers about, the steps they're taking or not taking to kind of crack down on some of these messages that are coming through. So reporting those things at least flags it with your phone provider or your email provider, those types of things, lets them know that this is a phishing message. And if they're getting large amounts with it, they can kind of flag that and then get it to kind of law enforcement as well with that method. So that can be a big help. I know a few years ago, there was a large push with some of the auto warranty phone calls. Some of those reports that even came through with the do not call list were coming, people complaining to do not call about those phone numbers that were sending those messages. So law enforcement was able to track that number down, or those numbers that were being used to different, a lot of times it's internet phone-based systems that these scammers are using. And some of these guys, they were pushing out billions with the B, billions of phone calls from call centers overseas. And in that case, they were able to track that down and close that one operation with the auto warranty phone calls in that case. But, all this different types of things we can do, maybe just a drop in the bucket sometimes, with that, but, taking advantage of those reporting features can make a difference in, at least getting some of these stopped. And maybe it's preventing that next person down the line from getting that phone call that could lead to that type of scam, or maybe identity theft if they're, willing to give away information. So I think that was all the phone or all the questions that we had in there. I'm going to click in here one more time. But again, if you weren't able to download the slides, you can email me, let me know. If you get our public information email list, those come from me, so you can reply to that and get those. My information is also on our website as well. I apparently didn't put my slide in there with my email address, so I apologize for that. So you can reply to the confirmation emails that you got for this webinar, and those will go to me. And you can also find my information on our website. And I encourage you, if you didn't download Ditch the Pitch, do so. You can go to consumer.sc.gov, and we've got that there. And you can also request those physical copies of it as well for any groups that you have. And we're happy to come out and talk to your groups as well if you want a free presentation dealing with Ditch the Pitch or Ditch the Pitch Bingo. And we hope you'll join us again next week when we're talking about passwords and passkeys. And I hope you have a good rest of your day.